la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Oh la 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 la. Literally, like, can you tell when I switch from my professional podcast to my human to human podcast? Because I can tell. Welcome back to Human to Human. I'm your host, Jess, and there's a lot we need to catch up on. So let's get the fuck to it. So we always start my episodes with a TMI story. This is something that's a little too much information that you didn't really need to know, but it reminds us that we're all human. So this past weekend, first of all, I'm the type of girl who, like, my favorite, my ideal, my, like, best kind of girls weekend, it's with my mom and her cousins. My mom has a bunch of cousins who are literally like aunts to me. Like, they're like my cousins, they're like aunt, they're like a second mom. Like, I love them so much. They're like friends. So this past weekend, we all drove really far up north of Sudbury, to an incredible island called Manitoulin Island to visit my mom's cousin who lives there. And I had the best time. I just like needed the break from my phone. I just like really enjoyed getting to hang with them. I don't have like a big group of girlfriends at all, and so I just like love getting to see them. And there's just something about family where it's just like they just like get you and you don't have to explain things. And on the Saturday night, my mom went to bed. Oh no, my earring just fell out. Oh, I'm gonna put it back in. So I'm going to tell you while I put my earring back in. On the Saturday night, my mom went to bed before me, which literally never happens, which is crazy. It's like she's almost going to be 50. I know my mom's kind of young for me to be 23, but my parents were high school sweethearts. Crazy. My mom will never go to bed before me. So Friday night, I went to bed before everyone else. I snuck off at midnight. And then Saturday night, my mom went to bed probably at 11, I think, and I was going to go to bed, but I ended up staying up and chatting with her two cousins, and it was so nice. And it felt so good to talk about my mom to people who know my mom so well, and just talk about my family and talk about my life to people who just get it. And it's just like, it just hits different when they're blood related. You know what I'm saying? Okay, I got my earring reattached. Perfect. So, but the Friday night, we all got to have a bonfire and hang out right by like this little beach. It's like insane, the house that my mom's cousin lives in, just because of like the view, and it's like right on the water. It's stunning. As soon as I showed up, I was like, I need nature in my life. And the sun was setting, and like, I'm the type of bitch to rally everyone and be like, we're going skinny dipping when the sun sets, like usually when it's dark out. But I think I made a comment about like how beautiful the sunset was, and I was like, I kind of want to go swimming, but I didn't think anyone would come with me. And I was just like, well, if I feel like going right now, I would just go in my bra and underwear. And I was standing near the lake, and one of my mom's cousins stood up and goes, I'm down, and starts taking her pants off. And I was like, fuck yeah, let's go. And then I was like, are you serious? She's like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, honestly, it's better to go now while the sun is still like kind of out, just so that like we're not like walking through rocks to get into the water when it's pitch black. Like, that's way scarier. And so I was like, let's go, everybody, clothes off, in your bra and undies, let's go swimming. And everyone rallied, and the water was cold. I loved it, but I like climbed on a bunch of them and was like, get under the water. We like swam out. They had a little bit of a floaty device. We like hung out on the floaty device, and then when it was like we were over it, we all swam back in, and one of the cousins was playing music, and we all literally jumped around on the beach and danced in our bra and underwear, and it was so much fucking fun. And it filled my heart and just like the whole weekend, there was just so much dancing going on, and just so much like girl time and giggles and laughing and silliness, and it made me so happy. And there's also something so beautiful and powerful about hanging out with a bunch of women. I was gonna say I'm 23, but they're all 40s to like, I don't think any of them are 50 actually. Yeah, early 40s to late 40s, and just hang out and just like be in bra and undies and like not even care about anything. And just to see all of them, they've all had kids, and just like no one's talking about their bodies. Everyone's just hanging out and existing in the space together. And I looked at my mom and I was like, you need this, because my mom can be so critical of her body, and like I internalized that growing up, hearing that kind of stuff. And I do not think this is just my mom and I think this is like an insanely common thing that so much of us have experienced as women. And it was just like so beautiful to all hang out and just be like, this is who we are. And we're not going to harp on anything right now. Nothing about ourselves, nothing about our bodies, nothing. Like, we are just here to be together and dance and have fun. And it just made me feel so good. And so, like, that's the point of the summer. I love following Alessia Sculpt. I'm wearing a whole new outfit from Joe Fresh because Alessia is a partner with them. And like, truly, Joe Fresh is like hitting it with the good summer clothes, affordable, such inclusive sizes. And I love following Alessia because she's just like, there's no getting your summer body ready. Fuck that shit. Let's literally exist exactly as we are and eat the things we want to eat, drink the things we want to drink, have fun, enjoy ourselves. Because in Toronto, in Canada, the summers do not last long. So let's party while we can. This episode is going to be a lot about therapy, which I haven't talked about in a while. I have my own personal therapy updates. I have a lot of updates in terms of therapy with the therapy practice I work with. And someone submitted a question asking, how do you know when it's the time to see a new therapist? And so let's get into all of it. Let's go back down memory lane. It's July. And July is my 4-year anniversary of Human to Human, which is insane. So let's rewind in time to July of 2020, mid-pandemic. Little first-year university Jess had just started therapy for the very first time. And I was so shocked at the shit that I was learning. I was learning how much our society affects me and the way I function in my life. It affects my belief system so much more than I thought. I was realizing how much pressure I was putting on myself, and no wonder I was feeling like just so exhausted and going through a roller coaster of just like literally having a meltdown every couple months or weeks even, because I was just trying to do too much. And I started therapy, and it just like really, really, really helped me. So much so that I remember saying to my best friend, Maya, who was on my very first episode, which is crazy, and I'm going to hang out with her tonight, so like, love that we're talking about Maya right now. And I remember saying to her, like, I think I want to start a podcast. And bless her, love a good girlfriend, she was like, oh my God, do it. She was so supportive. She was willing to come on for the first episode. We got criticized by different people we knew when the first episode came out, and she was like, who cares? And she just like really taught me how to just follow my passion and be unapologetic about it. And it's just crazy how things have evolved like 4 years later. So excited to hang out with her right now and like catch up about life. She was just on a trip, and so that's huge. And then also, I had seen the exact same therapist up until now. So I just started seeing a new therapist, and we'll get into that at the later part of this episode. But the fact that for 4 years, I've been sharing my therapy realizations. I've been sharing different dating advice. I've been talking about friendship breakups. I've been talking about overall what it's like to be in your early 20s and be growing up in our society and how to navigate it and how fucking hard it is. And it evolved into me sharing about poo stories and period stories and TMI stories, because we need people to just feel good sometimes. We need people to remind us that like we're not alone. We need other perspectives to show that like what we're going through is okay and we're gonna get through it and we're not alone. And that's why I called this Human to Human. I'm a human talking to you, another human, about the weird shit we go through. I also haven't in a long time, but had guests on, another human talking to another human about life. And so my core value is about connection. And I just love that this podcast started because I started therapy. And now I've been teasing this for a while, and I've mentioned that I am working with Building Bridges Psychotherapy, an incredible therapy practice in Ontario. We have 4 in-person locations in downtown Toronto, Mississauga, Guelph, Vaughan. 5 in-person locations. We just opened a Markham office, and there might be a 6th location coming soon. And there's over 50 plus therapists in this therapy practice. They all speak like, between all these therapists, someone gave me the number recently. So many different languages. They're from so many different communities. We support so many people from different communities, LGBTQ plus communities, different diverse communities, ethnic communities. Just like, It is such a great therapy practice, and I'm so honored to be working with them as their marketing manager, but also as the host and producer of a brand new podcast called Mental Health Matchmaker.
Raise your hand if you've gone to therapy. Just me? We're going to change that. Hi, my name is Jess, and I am on a mission to make it easier to find the right therapist for you. Who has the time? Who has the money? Who, frankly, has the energy? I am interviewing trained and licensed therapists in every single episode of this show, and hopefully, you can find the right match for you. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when new episodes drop, and I really hope this helps on your therapy journey.
So I am acting as a mental health matchmaker because I am interviewing every single therapist in this therapy practice. And it feels so full circle that I've been doing human to human for 4 years, and I started human to human because I started therapy, but I never had a good therapy resource to direct this community to, which is crazy. I remember years ago talking about therapy on podcast episodes and being like, I wish I had a better recommendation of like where I think you should go to seek a therapist. And high quality therapy is actually difficult to come by. Sure, we get ads for BetterHelp, and you know how I found my OG therapist was through Inkblot, but these are kind of like the McDonald's of therapy. I'm like quoting my boss. Because you know, you can get it quick, you can get it easy, but you don't necessarily have a great quality therapist. You don't know what kind of supervision they're doing. You don't know what kind of training they have. Like, you can look into that stuff, but it's a much more of a toss-up. And I am going to sit here and vouch for BB therapy and say that these therapists have such high quality training. They are constantly evolving, and overall, just every person I've met a part of this therapy practice is a great human. And so it feels so cool to now be able to sit here and say, I have a resource for you. And not only that, but this podcast, Mental Health Matchmaker, is all about making it easier to find the right therapist. Because recently, I just went through the process of looking for a new therapist, and I was like, how the fuck is there zero video content of any of these therapists that I'm trying to figure out if I want to pay money to speak to them? I was like, this is insane. And I'm just so glad that now, at least I can't see the therapist at this therapy practice, so I don't get to directly benefit from it because you can't have a dual relationship with your client as a therapist. Fun fact. But now for people who are looking for a therapist, you can come to this therapy practice, and eventually there will be episodes for every single therapist. Right now, we've launched with 3 episodes, and we'll have new episodes coming out every single week where I interview the therapist, and you can get a sense, honestly, I think within the first 5 minutes, even within the first 2 minutes of, do you vibe with this person? Just getting to know what their tone of voice sounds like, what their energy is like, what their vibe is, and then also getting to hear about their personal experience and different topics they support clients with. It's like, why aren't more people doing this? You know? And I mean, I don't know. I think it's a very innovative thing to do with a therapy practice. And so I am, first of all, so grateful if you are listening to Human to Human and have been a supporter for a long time. I know there are a few people who have been around for a long time, but also are just tuning in and following along on this journey. And I have converted to mostly solo episodes with Human to Human. And so MHM, the new Mental Health Matchmaker podcast with BB Therapy, is really scratching that interview itch for me. Every single episode is an interview, and I can obviously speak personally to the fact that therapy changed my life, and getting to speak to someone who's an unbiased, non-judgmental person who has so much like expertise to offer and perspective to give, it helps my mental health so much. It's insane. And when I just recently went through the experience of looking for a new therapist, it was hard. It's weird trying to find someone. Like, you're not going to want to be friends with everyone that you meet. You're not going to want to date every person that you go on a date with. And so no wonder not every therapist you speak to, you're going to click with. I was really lucky 4 years ago that the first therapist I spoke with, we were a great match. I love all these references now. We were a great match, a mental health match made by, not me, kind of made by me. And we worked together for 4 years, and I learned so much. Last year, I did actually seek out a new therapist, and I saw 2 different therapists, and it was hard to really pinpoint if we were a match or not, because it takes a bit. But after 2 or 3 sessions with both of those therapists, I was like, it doesn't feel right. Like, you really have to trust your gut instinct on that kind of thing. And so now, just a couple weeks ago, I went through the process of seeking someone new, and I'm so grateful. I'm so deeply involved in the therapy world now that I'm like, okay, I want in person. I want someone who looks like me. I want someone who's like, a bit on the younger side. I want a woman. I want someone who's experienced with this and that. And so it was like, I walked into it being like, this is what I need. But I know that a lot of people don't have that knowledge. And so I think it's so important to be able to like listen to a 20-minute podcast episode and be like, do I like them or do I not? Sorry, I keep hitting the mic stand. And when I was going through the process of finding this therapist, I was jumping through hoops. I was like Googling Toronto therapists. I was trying to figure out where there were in-person locations. And I was trying to make sure it was someone that looked like someone I'd be comfortable to talk to. And then I literally like searched up this woman's Instagram and then found her own private practice website and then found the in-person location she did there. Saw that she had 0 video footage of her. So I was like, okay, I guess I got to book a 15-minute phone consult. And I'm just like, we should get rid of all of these steps that are required to find a therapist. And luckily, I've had 2 in-person sessions so far, and they are some good sessions. But really, you don't see a big improvement, or you don't really like always feel movement on the mental health state that you're in until you see a therapist for like 3 to 5 sessions even. So I can tell from my first 2 sessions with her, I'm like, I love the questions she's asking. I love the insight she's giving, the perspective she's giving. I love the space that she holds with me. I cried yesterday in my session, but I can tell like, okay, we're uncovering some stuff, but we haven't gotten to the point where like the interventions are coming in, where like, she's actually like giving me tips or tools yet, because she doesn't know me well enough yet. It takes a bit. I'm paying out of pocket, girl. Like, this is not cheap, but for me, I just knew it was time. And let me tell you why. So I love when people submit specific questions to the podcast. You can go to my website, Human Pod, and you can submit a question. It's completely anonymous. You can also submit a TMI story. I love reading out other people's TMI stories because, we're all humans and there's only so much I share about my bodily experiences. So feel free to do that if you want me to answer a question. And just a couple weeks ago, someone asked, how do you know when it's time to find a new therapist? And this is something I have been struggling with for a while. Last year, I was going through some friendship breakups. I was feeling a bit stagnant with my therapist. And so I sought out some new therapists and just didn't find a good match then. And I ended up going back to my original therapist, and she really, really helped me with the friendship breakup situations. But most recently, now, I've seen her maybe once a month, and the same issues are still coming up. Like, each session, I would say I feel good after, but a couple weeks go by and the same issues are coming up. I'm struggling with decision fatigue. I'm struggling with slowing down. I feel like I can't rest. I can't relax. I'm overworking myself. I'm, feeling a lot of anxious, energy in my day-to-day life. And I talked to my therapist about it a few times, but the fact that I wasn't improving was like a red flag to me, that I was like, maybe she's not working for me anymore, which was a really hard thing to like process, because this girl knows me so well. Like, she knows 19-year-old Jess, 20-year-old Jess, 21-year-old Jess, 22, and now I'm 23-year-old Jess. And I was sort of reflecting today, and I feel like the beginning of my therapy journey was, I was single. I had a lot to work through in terms of relationships. And then I feel like a lot of my journey turned into like work and that kind of mindset and what I wanted to do with my life. And then I was working through a lot of friendship stuff. And now I feel like I'm in this phase where I moved out of my parents' house kind of for good, it feels like. And now I'm like, okay, there's definitely some parental stuff I'm navigating. And it was scary to think about meeting a new therapist and having to like tell them all the new things I was going through. But I'll tell you about how that's been. But other things that were kind of flags to me that it was time to find a new therapist was I'd tried once before. So already there was some signs there that something was off. Like I said, I was still struggling with the same issues and I was feeling stagnant. I had only ever done virtual therapy because that therapist actually lives in Alberta. And I could tell I was like, I want the in person experience. Going and interviewing so many therapists in person for the Mental Health Matchmaker podcast, I was getting so many senses of like, oh my gosh, all these people come here and they do in person therapy. I've never experienced that. Like, I want to know what that's like. And I just couldn't get that with my other therapist. So I was feeling that itch. And I'd done 1 or 2 virtual sessions in my bedroom in my new apartment, and it just didn't feel the same. And I could tell that there was like only so much I could do and only so many places I could grow with virtual therapy. There's a whole screen, like you don't see anyone's body language, you don't feel the energy of the room. It's different. So that was another thing. I was like, I want to try in person, and I've known that for a while now. And then the last thing was that I felt very hesitant to book sessions. And I say that because that was the surface feeling that revealed or hinted to me that there was some deeper things that I was experiencing that I hadn't quite navigated yet. And now that I'm seeing a new therapist, I feel like I've been able to like let it off my chest of I felt very nervous to book sessions. I felt like, do I really need this session? I was really questioning myself. And my therapist was really, really busy. She wouldn't have availability for like a month or a month and a half in advance. So I was like, if I have an SOS, I have to email her. And I really didn't want to do that. And I was feeling a lot of, stagnant energy in that sense. I didn't want to reach out and seek help from her, which is a red flag. It's like, it's a therapist. I should feel okay to reach out to them, especially someone who I've seen for so much of my life for a couple years. I shouldn't feel all this resistance. So that was a bit of a red flag for me. And now reflecting more, there were certain things my therapist said that was like, you have all the tools, Jess, you know how to deal with this. And because she would say that, I know it was meant with good intention, but it made me feel invalidated or like, oh, I have the tools, so I should be able to figure this out on my own. And you never want to have that feeling seeking a therapist because it's so vulnerable to go see a therapist that like if they're saying something like that, it made it 10 times harder for me to book a session. And I also felt like I'd have to be like, okay, like Josh, like I called my boyfriend, I'm like, should I book a session? And I felt like I needed external validation. Whereas now I'm seeing a new therapist and I'm like, she has availability next week? Lit, book. And like even after my first session with her, she immediately said like, do you want to book in for next week? Or like, do you have insurance? What timeline? How often do you want to see each other? And my old therapist never did that. And now that I'm working at a therapy practice, I really know like do's and don'ts. And everyone has their own style. Everyone has their own way of doing things. But I think it is really helpful for a therapist to prompt you at the end of the session and say, when do you want to see me next? No pressure. Like we don't need to book right now, but them offering that prompt is so helpful because or else I'm just like, okay, well, guess I'm going to wait till it gets so bad to the point where I'm having a mental breakdown and then I decide to book with you. Rather than if they book in with me, even if it's 3 weeks in advance, a month and a half in advance, at least I know, okay, I have this next session. So it got me thinking about like, okay, what do I want to talk about next time? Or, oh, that thing she said, it just made me realize this other thing now that I'm living it in real life in the moment. Okay, I can't wait to tell her about that next week. And I think like a high quality therapist will prompt you and say, when do you want to chat next? Leaving it all up to me was a lot, and it was hard enough to book a session. Then I just like it was so hard when it got to the point where I was literally crying in my room feeling like I don't know how the fuck I'm gonna deal with this myself, and then having to be like SOS. Like you don't want to have to email someone and be like, I'm struggling. It's so hard to say that. So I also was like, I want to see a therapist who has a bit more of an open schedule. So those were all my flags. There was definitely some invalidation happening that I was struggling to admit to myself, and I wanted to see someone in person. I wanted to see someone who had more availability, and I wanted to see someone who would challenge me in different ways. And what I loved was that in my 15-minute free phone consultation, I told her these things. She asked me, why are you seeking therapy right now? And like, what things did your previous therapist do that you liked and you didn't like? And so this was able to come out, and I was able to be honest and say, like, I need you to challenge me. I also was like, I do so many interviews that I am constantly asking questions, and I just like want to be guided. And so I I laid it out all on the line and was like, this is what I need. And she was extremely receptive to that. Now, let's talk about my fears of not wanting to have to get to know someone and them need to like get to know everything about my life. I was like, why would I seek a new therapist? Like my old therapist already like knows everything about me. Like, you know, she knows what I'm like, she knows my mannerisms, she knows the things I struggle with. Like maybe she just like knows the answers that are best for me. She knows the most about me, so I should just stick with her. Now that I've started to tell this new therapist all about my life, she's definitely pointing things out that my previous therapist did not. Because I also had the moment where I got to reflect and say, I've changed a lot in 4 years. I have a different relationship with my parents. I have a different relationship with my friends. I have a different relationship with myself and my job and all of this. And there are things that my previous therapist didn't catch that this new therapist is catching, because I have to tell her everything from square one, which doesn't actually like take as much like effort or difficulty as I thought it would, because she's prompting me. She's asking questions about my parents. She's asking questions about my upbringing. She is guiding. Fuck, I like rant so much that I'm like, sometimes I'm like, okay, listen to her, Jess, like don't just keep going, which like I appreciate when someone's able to be like, okay, it sounds like this and this is happening, it's related to this, and she's really doing that. And it's been so eye-opening to realize like, wow, I hadn't told my old therapist all these different things happening currently right now, because she already knew a basis of like what was going on with my parents or like what's up with my brother. Whereas this new therapist is like, it's a blank slate. And so there is so much validation I am feeling when I'm telling her about my life, because she's like, this is a lot. You're taking on a lot. Like, wow. And I cried in my session yesterday. And at the end of it, she was like, are you okay? Like, this was a lot. Like, you know, you got emotional, you really shared a lot. And I feel so supported. So fucking supported. I woke up this morning, definitely was tired because I'd like cried and just like processed. Not even. I don't even feel like I've processed. I just like released so much feeling and thought and emotion. And this morning I was sitting in my living room and I was like, oh, like, am I going to have another bad day? Because yesterday I definitely had a bad day leading up to my therapy session. And then I made a big business move seeking support with my content on the side that I do with Human to Human. And then I decided to go to Joe Fresh and get some new clothes. And I started to have a really good day. And I was like, oh, I genuinely attest that to going to a therapy session and feeling so much support. And I want to remind you, or I just want to tell you if you don't know this, that we don't have to always let it get to the point where it's so bad before we seek support. I have lived in this apartment for I think 3 months now, maybe a bit over 3 months actually, and I am dealing with things that I've never dealt with before because I am fully financially independent. I am fully on my own. It feels like I have a roommate, but like, you know, it's a lot of solo time. And I've broken down to my boyfriend and said things like, I feel so alone and I don't feel seen. And especially, you know, seeing a therapist when this is normal to outgrow people. It's normal to no longer feel fulfilled in that therapeutic relationship. I don't know enough about like, there is a term called, I had to like Google it for a second, but it came to me right before I Googled it, called terminating your relationship. And I almost wish that my therapist was like, maybe it's time for us to move on, because I could sense it from her. I could sense that I don't know how much more she had to give for me. Oops, sorry, I just hit my mic. But I had to make that decision myself. And I've had a lot of moments where I've just cried and have felt lost and have felt by myself in a lot of experiences. And I didn't have to wait this long. And honestly, I mean, I probably didn't wait that long compared to a lot of lengths of time that other people wait, because I just like know how much therapy helps me. But the thing that triggered it too was talking to a coworker and them talking about they were trying to find a new therapist, and how it's like also like really hard and weird to like be so involved in the therapy industry and then like seek your own therapist. But because I heard someone that I work with speak about their journey trying to find a new therapist, and out loud I was like, I need to find a new therapist. I've been thinking about this. It just like reassured me of like, it's time. And then I had a whole breakdown, and then immediately after I was like, before I even went to bed after that breakdown, I was like, I need to figure this out because I want to enjoy my life. I do. And I'm so grateful for my apartment. I'm grateful for this new home. I'm so insanely grateful for my job. I feel honored to get to speak to therapists and put it out into the world. I am so grateful for Human to Human and the community that I have built, and you for being here and for listening. And yet I was having moments where I just couldn't let myself soak it in. I couldn't let myself rest and enjoy it. I've been dealing with anxiety that I haven't felt before. And so I was like, I deserve to enjoy my life and to enjoy the things that have come with me working so fucking hard to have. I don't want to just suddenly be like, okay, what's next? Okay, why don't I have 100K followers? Okay, why am I not making $3,000 more every single month so that I can feel more comfortable? It's like, whoa. Like, let's be present in where we are right now. And I just know in my gut that I can't figure that out on my own. And so I'm paying the money. I'm doing the hard work. It's so nerve-wracking. I literally hop on the subway and I'm like, I'm going to go talk about my problems. And yesterday after my session, I was like, I need to walk. I can't just go sit on a subway. I need to walk. Like, whoa, that was a lot. But it's helping me so much. And what the fuck is life worth living if we can't enjoy it? Why do we work so hard? Why do we work to make money if we can't spend a little bit of it and we can't invest in our own mental health? So thank you for listening to this very, very long rant about therapy, but it feels overdue. It feels like it was time for us to have a therapy realization moment, because that is the whole reason I started Human to Human. This wouldn't be here if I didn't start therapy 4 years ago. And now my career is going in a direction I could have never pictured. I didn't think I was going to start a new podcast, but the fact that I'm starting a podcast where I get to interview therapists and make it easier to find the right therapist, now that is a mission I believe in wholeheartedly. So make sure you subscribe to not only this podcast, Human to Human, but to also Mental Health Matchmaker if you are seeking a therapist. If you literally just want to get a little bit of insight into the therapy world as well, you can go listen to that podcast and you will absolutely learn so much from super amazing, experienced, trained and licensed therapists. That words, the trained and licensed, has been coming out of my mouth so much lately. And once you like listen to the episodes, you'll see in the intro, everyone is trained and licensed. And I'm so grateful to be here. And I could like get emotional talking about it because like I want to live a life of like joy and fulfillment and purpose. And it's so important for me to do something with my life that is very mission driven, and this is that. So let's take care of our mental health as much as we can, and keep up with me on Instagram and TikTok at Human to Human Pod. In the meantime, the socials for the Mental Health Matchmaker podcast are just on the Building Bridges accounts. So bbtherapy.ca on Instagram, and the website is www.bbtherapy.ca. And I hope this helps on your therapy journey. That is something I say in the trailer of the MHM podcast. So I love you, and I hope you enjoy hearing more from me, because I have been struggling with podcasting as much on Human to Human, and this is why. I can finally tell you, because I have been like tripling my podcast workload, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And don't worry, I'm taking care of my own mental health with my new therapist in person in Toronto. I love it. Okay, I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.